Today we want to further our conversation about addiction and recovery, specifically looking at the labels that we use. In the spirit of my previous conversation about transformative learning, tips including operating from beginner's mind, as well as operating from the perspective of an active mentor as opposed to being just a passive learner, here goes. I read this last week that the effects of alcohol are experienced in our bodies, experienced biologically, for as long as ethanol remains in our body. So ethanol is the toxin that our bodies have to metabolize. In fact, it's the liver that does the metabolizing. Liver is the organ in our body that eliminates and processes toxins or poisons. So that's the main job of the liver, and it is employed full-time to process and metabolize ethanol until it moves out of our system. In fact, as long as ethanol is in our system, yet to be metabolized, we are, in fact, intoxicated. Well, I read this, and I'm sure I've read something like this a handful of times, but it's the first time that it ever occurred to me, the word intoxicated, in the context of talking about the liver, ethanol, and the processing of toxins. I never have thought about it, that toxin is at the heart of the word intoxicate. Now I want to introduce topics for reflection. That is, when I read something like that, I just sit and I ponder and I go, my Lord, I've never thought of it that way before. So it set me on a path, and this is the way it went. I thought, beside the word intoxicated, what are other words that I or we use in reflection of somebody who's had too much to drink or has taken drugs? And I actually went online and found a site that has listed hundreds of these terms. I've picked a few highlights. These are all synonyms for intoxicated. Wasted, destroyed, fried, obliterated, hammered, smashed, wrecked, and on the list goes. Then I began to wonder, how do such culturally acceptable terms, how do those impact then my view or our view of substance use and abuse, addiction? Literally, our taking in toxins. I honestly have never thought of the word intoxicate referencing taking in poisons. And in fact, that is the root. And these other terms, being hammered, being smashed, being murdered, being obliterated, those would all seem to point in the direction of something's going on that may not be the best thing for the body. Else we wouldn't pick those terms. But it's interesting, the emotional response. I laugh when I hear those terms. In fact, in some circles, those are a badge of honor. If somebody shares with me that they got smashed last night, I'm more inclined, probably, to ask them, well, how'd it go, or how are you feeling? And we kind of laugh about it, kid about it. So it led me to question my own response and my own using these terms. First of all, if I'm with somebody who is presently or has recently been intoxicated, let's say that they're hungover, and we laugh about it, is it possible that I'm even enabling that? But there's no question of the behavior. As long as I use these terms, I'm giving kind of formal sanction to whatever it is that led to their intoxicated state. And how about if it's me that is the addict or the one that's been intoxicated? Wouldn't it follow that using these terms, because they're light, they're euphemisms, that they would support maybe my own denial of my own self-reflection on what it is that led me to be intoxicated? I'll finish up by the way, there's no answers to this, I'm just putting these out as questions. I recently had opportunity to read, in Asia, there are 5 ethical precepts. I kind of think of them as corollaries to the 10 Commandments in the Judeo-Christian heritage. And the 5th of these precepts, which was actually picked as the 5th because it's the most important, it's kind of presumed, is to refrain from the ingestion of intoxicants. If we think about it in terms of poison, and that's really how what I was reading was talking about it, why would we grant blessing to taking in poison if in this tradition, as in the Judeo-Christian tradition, our goal is spiritual well-being? I'll leave us with that. Thank you.